Hello again, everyone. This is Zombie Kids Rule, and I'm back with I guess, a tutorial explanation for the demo that I did probably a couple weeks ago now on the player controlled, essentially allowing the player to place a large dwelling, a yurt, I think I called it, on the map wherever they want, as long as it will fit, right? As long as it's not too close to the edge, as long as it's not too close to an obstacle, as long as it's not going to cover something up. And the idea behind this was that from old D&D, like many years ago, I remember this like wondrous item or something that was like a mage tower, and the player could carry this thing around, and they could put it somewhere, and a tower would appear, and it was their dwelling. They had all their stuff. They could carry it around with them. It could be a fortification, right, or something like that. And I said, that's kind of cool. I wonder if I could do that in MZ. And I didn't want to pick something small like a one square event. I wanted something larger, so I used the tent from default MZ that covers 9 squares, right? So 9 tiles is what it covers. And I was like, okay, cool. Can I make it where the player can choose a spot to put that tent down, and it's gonna only let you do it if it will fit, right? It won't be cut off anywhere. So I actually had to restart this video because as I was making the video and I was showing a demo again on how this works, it didn't work right. I forgot to do something, so I had to fix it. And I apologize for the delay in this. Basically, what happened was I made the demo with using a single map, and it worked. And I was like, okay, cool, this is great. And then after I made the demo and I posted it, I realized, I was like, you know what? Wait a second. This isn't just a one map thing. This is like any map. So I better test it on another map too, to show that you can go from map to map and it's not going to mess anything up, and you can do this on multiple maps. So I did that, and then I had a problem. I realized that I built it in a way that didn't allow for multiple maps. So I fixed that. And then as I was testing it, getting ready to do a video, I realized that one little tiny piece wasn't working right. It was working completely fine on one map, but yet the exact same event doing the exact same thing on another map, it wasn't working right. It was doing something weird. And so I spent a lot of time trying to figure that out. And finally, I was able to get it to do what I wanted to do consistently on both maps. So now this should be replicatable for any amount of maps that you want. So again, I apologize for the delay, but in testing and expanding, I realized that I needed to change this a little bit. Now, with that said, I'm just going to do one of my caveats here, which is I'm not an expert. I don't claim to be an expert. I'm just trying to share things that I've been able to build, that I'm interested in, that I want to learn how to do, all in the pursuit of me learning RPG Maker MZ and learning JavaScript, right? I'm doing an online JavaScript course right now, trying to learn. And I've been using MZ for about 14 months now. I'm still new. I'm still learning all kinds of stuff. So I'm not saying this is the most efficient way to do this. I'm not saying there's not a better way. Maybe there's a plugin that does this. I don't know. I haven't played around with plugins very much. But I find value in learning how to do things through eventing and the little scripting I do know. And then that way, if I do want to use plugins later on, because it's more efficient, it gives me more flexibility, cool. But I also don't have to worry about plugin conflicts, because if I learn how to do it, then I can do it myself manually if I really need to. So I'm just posting these videos in an attempt to share and give back. I'm hoping that these help folks. But again, I'm not an expert. I don't claim to be. There may be better ways to do this. This is just a way that I have learned to do it, and from my testing, it works. It may not be complete either. I was thinking about some of my earlier tutorials about allowing the player to set a portal anywhere they want. Haven't built that into this yet. Might take a little bit of tweaking to make sure everything works properly with that type of concept. So I'm just going to show you what I have right now. Again, I don't. These maps are probably the fanciest I've gotten so far for most of my tutorials, because I had to have some obstacles on the map to make it so that could test to make sure that the yurt dwelling can or can't be placed somewhere. Again, right now I'm focusing on functionality, and then when I actually start working on a project that I really want, then everything else comes from there. The assets, the map making, the graphics, the music, all that other stuff. All right, so I'm going to demo this again because there were a bunch of changes. And again, I just had to restart the video a few minutes ago because I realized that I had forgotten to do something. So anyway, I'm going to demo this again, and then I'll break it down how all of this works. So here we go. First thing that's going to happen is we're going to get the actual yurt from this yurt boy. Okay, so yurt boy gives me a yurt. And what I will say is that some of the stuff in here is not necessary. I was doing it when I was building things and trying to make sure I understood what was happening, or for testing purposes. So some of the stuff is not necessary. I'll kind of cover that when I do the explanation. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go in items. Here's my yurt. I'm going to click on that, and it calls a common event. Do you want me to set up the yurt? Well, let's say no. Okay, talk to me again when you want me to set up the yurt. All right, let's try it. Let's go over here. Let's try right there. That should not fit. Do you want me to set it up? Yes. Sorry, it's not going to fit there. Okay, so let's go over here. Let's see if we can put it on top of this guy. Nope, not going to fit. There's an obstacle in the way. How about over here? You know what? Let's just do it on the edge of the map. Because remember, this is 9 tiles. This yurt takes up 9 tiles. Nope, not going to fit there either. So let's go down here. Okay. Nope, won't fit there. Whoops. That's right, I forgot. I transferred. See, will it fit here? Nope, not going to fit. Bet you it'll fit here, though. Okay, there we go. There's my yurt. Now I'm going to go up here, make sure. There's where the events are. Nope, everything's good. Yurt's here. Let's leave the map. Okay. Yep, yurt's still there. Let's go inside the yurt. Okay, this is not my yurt. I was too lazy to build the interior of a yurt, so I just used an interior map. Okay, that's all I did. Now let's leave the yurt. Okay, look at that. Now I can walk behind the yurt. Yay! Woo, look at me. I'm walking behind the yurt. Okay, all right. So there's that. Now, watch this. I'm going to try to pick up the yurt. You want me to take it down? Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. The yurt isn't here. Did you forget that we left it somewhere else? So you got to take it down on the map you're on, right? The little yurt boy is not going to go find your yurt and take it down for you. So, can I take it down? Yes, I can. All right, this is going to take a minute. He takes my yurt down. All right, cool. So far, so good. So let's go over here. See if I can put it here. You want me to set it up? No, sorry. Obstacles in the way, right? Let's go over here. This is where I messed up. I forgot to do something. So I'll double check to see if I fixed it. Okay, yurt won't fit there either, right? 9 tiles. Now watch this though. However, I think it will fit here because I didn't cover this one little extra guy. I was using him for testing. Yeah, so that's a problem, right? So that is a problem because I didn't do what I was supposed to do. And you notice that it covers the tree and he's standing inside the thing. Well, crap, that's not going to work, right? So I actually left that there on purpose so that you would see what happens if you don't do this properly. Okay, so we got that, right? We're still good there. So now let's actually put the yurt somewhere it's supposed to be. Okay. There it is. There's my yurt. I'm going to leave the map. Okay. And it's still there. I can walk behind it. I can go inside of it. Again, this is my interior yurt. And then there it is. Okay. So I go over here. It shouldn't let me take it down. Sorry. Can't take it down, right? Someplace else. And we'll just go here. Take it down. Okay, perfect. So that's it. You can't put it where, except for this guy where I left it on purpose. You can't put it where you're not supposed to, where it won't fit. Okay. All right. So how does this work? All right. So first things first is this little event here. Nothing magical. The first part, some of this stuff is not even necessary in this event. This is where I was testing what was happening. Really, what's going to happen is when you use the yurt, when you use the item, it's going to call a common event, and that's going to do all the stuff that's needed. But first things first, when I was trying to figure this out, I was messing around with setting a variable to the width of the map, and then setting a variable to the height of the map, right? So $game capital map dot width and then parentheses. That's gonna give you the width of the map. This is gonna give you the height of the map in case you need to know that, right? And then this is just setting a variable map ID to the map ID, right? The ID of the map, which would be we're on map 25 down here. And then this would be it's 17 by 17. Well, the reason I'm setting variables to these is because in order to do part of figuring out whether the yurt will fit where it needs to be, we have to do some math, right? And part of that is how wide is the map, and the yurt's got to fit. So we're going to have to subtract. And same thing with the height. So this was just messing around in the beginning to say, can I set these things to variables? And of course, the answer is yes. Same thing with this variable. Player position X is equal to the map X of the player. Player position Y as the variable is set to the map Y of the player. And then I was testing the variable yurt X and yurt Y, and I was setting it to I'm basically doing math here, the variable 499, which was the map width, subtract variable 30, which was the player position X. So basically you're subtracting the variable 30, which was the map X of the player, and you're subtracting it from the width of the map. And then this is doing the same thing only with the Y. So variable 31, which is player position Y, so map Y, subtracting it from the height of the map. So again, this was just messing around. And then I have my dialogue here about the yurt boy saying what's the dimensions of the map, right? So the map is /v and then variable 499, map X, and by /v 500, variable 500 tiles. So he's telling you the X and the Y, the width and the height of the map. Then the yurt X and Y are, again, saying the variables, 497, 498 here. And it's just making sure that I'm doing the math right. That's all I'm doing here, is setting this up to make sure I understand how to do this. Then I give the players the yurt itself, and then I tell them the party gained a yurt. Okay, so again, this is not really essential other than giving the player the yurt, right? This was just testing to make sure I knew what the heck I was doing. And then, so in the database, all I did was I made, so I had a tent for another reason, but here's my yurt, right? It's just whatever icon you have, a description, a giant dwelling. None of this makes any difference because it's a regular item, right? It's not a key item, it's not a hidden item, so it's just a regular item. It's not consumable, so when you use it, it's not going to go away. You can't sell it because the price is on 0. You're only going to use it on the menu screen, so you're not doing it in battle, okay? So you can't do it in battle. None of this other stuff makes any difference. None of this makes any difference. But this is important. You're calling a common event, right? So when I double-click here, on the Other tab, there's the common event, right? And you get to pick the common event that it calls. So this is calling a common event yurt whenever I use the item in the menu screen, okay? So now, before I show you the common event, let me show you these up here. These 9 events are the tent, the yurt. And you'll notice over here that it's labeled tent lower left corner. right? And then the next one, tent lower center. And then the next one, tent lower right, tent middle left, tent middle center, tent middle right, tent upper left, tent middle upper middle, tent upper right. And you're like, well, why? Why is that? Well, if we go to mapping and we go here, right? Basically, it's 9 tiles. So here's the lower left, here's the lower middle, here's the lower right, right? Middle left, middle center, middle right, upper left. You notice it's just a tiny little piece there. Upper middle, upper right. Okay, so it's 9 tiles. And if we want to replicate, well, so the way I'm doing it is if you want to replicate that on the map, you have to have 9 events. All right, so that's why I have it that way. Now, each one of these events, so there's 9 events, each one of these starts off blank, right? Because the player, I don't want the player to see it. So when you first enter the map, all of these events, all 9 of these events, have no image. They're below the character. You can't walk on them anyway because they're in the black area of the screen. So it's not like the player can walk on them, but it's just below characters, set the action button so nobody's interacting with it. It has no image. The player's not going to see anything. Every single one of these events has a second page. And that second page is set to self switch A. So when self switch A is turned on, okay, sorry, one of my dogs is making some really bizarre noises here. Okay. Okay, sorry about that, folks. Basically, one of my dogs was having a little bit of a nasal issue. So again, each one of these 9 events starts off with essentially a blank page, so the player can't see anything. And then they all have a second page, which gets turned on by self switch A. And the only thing that's different is it's a piece of the map, right? So here's the lower corner of the tent. And it's set to same as characters on the lower corner because I don't want the player to be able to walk through it. It's an action button. So in theory, the player could click on it, but there's no content, so it's not going to do anything. The player can try to click on it, but it's not going to do anything. It's just going to sit there. So I have direction fix. Walking could probably come off of that. It's just defaulted, so anyway, it's fine. Direction fix, that may not make any difference. I haven't played around with it, but I do know that some mapping elements, if you don't do direction fix, it will actually cycle through pieces. This is probably not one of those, but anyway, I wouldn't worry too much about this. You could probably uncheck these and see what happens. I did not test it though. So anyway, it's just where it is. No content. So even if the player does click on it, it's not going to do anything, but it's not going to let them walk through it either because it's same as character for the priority. So here's the lower left corner of that tent. When self switch A is on, this will appear on the map, whether either it's up here or it'll appear on the map. So next one, same type of thing. Blank first page, so you can't see it. And then when self switch A gets turned on, it's a doorway. So this is actually a little different, I think, than or maybe not. Maybe that's exactly the way it looks on the for the mapping. And this is set to below characters because I want the player to walk onto it or like on top of it in order to trigger a transfer event. And it's set to player touch. Now, we'll go through this in a second, okay? But so this is actually doing something because the player is going to walk on it to initiate a transfer to the inside of the yurt. This is the, again, blank, right? So all this is the same, blank to begin with, below characters, action button. You notice yeah, that's fine. And then page 2 is the lower right corner. And same as character, so they can't walk through it. Action button, but there's no content, so it's not going to do anything, right? And then all of these are the same. So blank, essentially, below characters, right? Page 2 is in the middle of the middle left. same as characters, because remember, this is gonna be moved. This event, all of these events are gonna be moved and set on the map somewhere. So up here, you're not gonna walk on it, doesn't matter. But once it gets moved onto the map, then same as characters make it so that the player can't walk through it, right? Action button, but again, there's no content to run. So self switch A. Here's the upper middle center. So again, blank to begin with. And then page 2, self switch A. Here's the tile for the middle of the yurt, the middle center. And then same as character, because don't want them walking through it. Action button, they're not going to be able to click on it anyway, really, but there's no content. All right. Then this one, same thing. Blank to begin with. Page 2, self switch A. Here's the middle right tile for the tent. Same as character, so they can't walk through it. Action button, again, they can click on it, but it's not going to do anything. And then the last 3 pieces, right? So blank to begin with. Page 2, self switch A, just that little tiny piece of the tile, right? Just to make it complete. Again, now this is above characters, right? Because and it's action button. So action button, they can try to click on it. It's not going to do anything. But it's above characters. This is going to allow the player to walk behind the tent and make it look like they're walking behind the tent. If you set this to below characters, they would walk on top of it, which would look really weird. And if you set it to same as characters, then they can't walk behind it. They're going to bump into it. It's going to look weird. So the bottom and the middle events are set to same as character and action button. The top are going to be set to above characters, so it makes it look like the player's walking behind it. All right, and still self switch A. And then here's the middle. Again, blank to begin with. Page 2, self switch A. Here's the top of the tile. And again, above characters, so the player can, in theory, walk under it or behind it. And then action button, but again, they can't click on it. There's no contents. And finally, here's the last one. So blank, page 2, self switch A. Here's the little tiny piece of the tent on the right-hand side. Again, above characters, so the player can walk behind it. Action button doesn't mean anything, right? It's not going to do anything. So those are your 9 events that you have to have on every single map that you want to allow the player to put the yurt on. You have to have those 9 events. And the nice thing is you can just copy and paste them, right? Because they're just sitting there. What I would say is it's best to have all of these as the same event numbers. And I'll explain that in a little bit. We're going to use a script to turn all of the self switch A's on or off, okay? But the problem is that if you have other events on this page that have self switches, you're going to turn those on and off as well using the script we're doing. So you might not want to do that. You might want to actually have separate scripts for each self switch that has to be turned on or off. And it would be very helpful if you had all of these events on the map as the same event numbers, so that way you can copy and paste them from one map to another, and you won't have to necessarily change your script as much for turning the self switches on and off. You'll have to change the map reference, but not the event ID references, okay? And not the self switches. So anyway, that's just a recommendation. So you need these 9 essentially invisible events. They're invisible until self switch A is turned on, and then the actual tile appears, right? And if we didn't move these, then the tent is going to show up here in pieces, right? But we're going to move all of these events onto the map in a 3x3 square. All right, so that's the first part, those things. We're going to skip over this event for now. This is going to be a parallel event that is going to basically run every time we enter the map to see, is the yurt on the map? Is the yurt supposed to be visible? And if it is, it's going to make sure that it moves these events to the proper place on the map and turn on the self switch A's so all the tiles are visible. That's what this event's going to be doing. And then if the yurt is not on, if the yurt is not set up, then basically this parallel event will turn itself off. All right. So we'll get back to that first. So first we did the get the yurt with this kid. Then we had the 9 events that are basically pieces of the yurt that are going to become visible when we turn on the self switch A's. And then we'll talk about that transfer event when we get there. All right, so first, let's do the common event. So in the common event for the yurt, this is what's being called when you go into items and you select to use the yurt. So the first thing it does, and again, there may be a few things in here that are not necessary. I haven't scrutinized it to the point of where maybe I initially put something in here and then it turns out I didn't need it. So I'm just going to show you what I have because it works. And then, if you discover that you can actually remove something and it doesn't break anything, then that's fine. So the first thing this is going to do, it's going to take a control variable, current map ID, and it's going to set it to map ID. All right, so actually, let me take a step back here for a minute. Actually, no, because I'll show it in here. So let me show it as this goes. So if you haven't seen this before, right, if you're doing a control variable, you pick your variable, and then you can do all this game data. And under the other for game data, there's map ID and then a variety of other things, right? So I'm doing map ID for this instance. I want to make sure that I know which map I'm on. So when the common event gets called, it's going to actually grab the map ID of what the player is on. So this is map 25 down here. Now, the next thing it's going to do, this is the common event, it's going to check and see if the map ID is not equal to the yurt map ID. Okay? Is the map ID not equal to the map yurt ID? Oh, I'm sorry. Wait a second. I clicked on the wrong thing. I clicked on the parallel. Sorry. Let's go back. So the common event. Yeah. Sorry. I was wondering why that was not going where I intended it to go. All right. So again, first thing, current map ID equals map ID. That's just getting the game data. I want to know which map I'm on. I'm on map 25. Then it's going to check this conditional, I guess, branch here. And the first thing is it's going to check if the yurt switch is on. Okay, so this is a switch. This is a conditional branch, but I'm using a switch. Is the yurt on? Meaning, is it visible somewhere on some map? So is it on? And then we turn that on later on, okay, when you put the yurt up. So this is a conditional branch. If the switch yurt on is on, then we're gonna have the yurt boy say something. Do you want me to take down the yurt? Because if the yurt is on, if the switch is on, that means the yurt has already been put up. So when we call the common event, the first time we call the common event, this will not be true. The yurt on switch will not be on. So it'll skip right over that, right? So it'll skip right over it and jump down to here. Do you want to set up the yurt? That's what will happen the first time. Once we set up the yurt, then that common event, it's still going to check this, right, as the first thing. Did we ever set the yurt up? That's what the switch is doing. So if yurt on, if the switch yurt on is on, then the NPC is going to ask you, do you want me to take the yurt down? And then you show choices, yes or no, right? So again, show choices, yes or no. And I think I've shown you this before. Show choices is on the event commands, first tab, right under show text, right? So yes or no. When yes, right? This pre-populates with your options. When yes, I want you to turn the yurt on, it's going to then check another conditional branch. If yurt map ID is not equal to the current map ID, right? So what it's doing here is when we set the yurt up, we're establishing a variable so that we know the map ID that the yurt is on. And that's not going to change until we take the yurt down and then put it up again, right? So the yurt map ID, it gets set when we set the yurt up. And then we're going to check, is it not equal to the current map ID, which was set here in the common event? Because if it's not equal, that means you're not on the map that the yurt is on. So you can't take it down. So that's the first thing that it checks is when yes, do you want me to take it down? When yes, do a conditional branch. If, conditional branch, if variable yurt map ID is not equal to the variable current map ID, and then we're going to have an else branch. So when it's not equal, then the dialog show text is going to say, I'm sorry, yurt isn't here. Did you forget we left it someplace else? And then it's going to exit the common event. It's going to boot you out. So you have to go in and try again. Else, meaning that if the yurt map ID is actually equal to current map ID, right? Because this one says if it's not equal, do this. Else means if yurt map ID is equal to current map ID, then what it's going to do is it's going to turn the switch yurt on. It's going to turn it off. So it's basically telling the game, hey, that switch yurt on is now off. The yurt is not on the map anymore. Then there's a show text. Okay, this is going to take a minute. Then we fade out the screen. Okay, so there is no, you can't edit that. It's just basically on page 2 of event commands, fade out and fade in. Okay, so we fade out the screen, and then we're going to do this script, which I'll explain in a second. Then we're going to fade the screen back in, and then we're going to exit the event processing. Because basically this is the part where it takes the yurt down. It makes the yurt disappear. Now, what is this script doing? Okay, this is the script that is turning all of those self switches off at the same time. And again, if you're on a map where the only self switches are being used is for this type of thing, like the yurt, you can get away with this. If you have events that are using self switches that you don't want to get turned off, then you can't use this script the way it is. All right, so what is this script doing? Let's go in here and edit it. So first, $game capital map dot events in parentheses, right? So dot for each, all right? So lowercase 4, capital each, and then a parentheses, right? So for each. This is a loop. This is a loop in JavaScript. I will just confess to you, I have not learned how to do this very well. So I took this from another thing that I found, because it works. It was a solution offered for another question, and I made sure that it works for this. I don't completely understand the JavaScript for loops yet. I'm still getting there. So for each, right? So this is a loop, and basically in the parentheses, event is equal or greater to, right? Or equal or greater to. And then it says $game capital self capital switches dot set capital value. We use this for when we it super highlighted. We use that self switches dot set value. We use that when we want to use a script to turn a self switch on or off in an event. And the great thing about it, I've used this in other tutorials, is that you can use this script to turn self switches on and off in any map that you have, okay? Any event, any map. So that's kind of cool. So we're going to do the self switches, and then we're going to do another parentheses. Then we're going to do a bracket, okay, a bracket, and then it's going to be we need the map ID, the event IDs, and the self switch. So $game capital map dot map capital ID in parentheses. So this is going to actually be the current map. Okay, that's the current map, comma, right, comma, event dot event capital ID in and then parentheses, empty parentheses. This is looping through and getting every single event. It's checking every single event on this map, comma. Then it's doing the single quote, capital A, single quote. That's the self switch A. If this was a capital B, it'd be self switch B. If it was a capital C, it'd be self switch C. So single quotes, the capital letter of the self switch. Then you have the closing brackets. Then you have a comma. Then you have the word false or true. False is turning a switch off. True is turning a switch on. Then you have your two closing parentheses. All right, so this is a very interesting script. Essentially what it's doing is it's looping through, the script itself is looping through all of the events on this map, this particular map, and it's turning off all of the self switches, which means these self switches were on and these events were moved to the map. This script is going to basically turn all those self switches off, which makes the tent disappear. It makes the yurt disappear, is what it does. Okay. And then let's see. So again, so $game capital map dot events with the set of parentheses dot for each, capital each, and then opening parentheses event equal sign greater to $game capital self capital switches dot set capital value, open parentheses, open brackets, $game capital map dot map capital ID, a set of parentheses, right? So this is the map ID, comma, event dot event capital ID in parentheses. So this is, again, all of the events it's going to cycle through, comma. Then it's going to be single quotations with the self switch inside, A, capital A in this instance, closing brackets, comma, false to turn it off, true to turn it on, and then your two closing parentheses. And we're going to use this script in multiple places to do what we need it to do. Every time we see this, it's turning all the self switches off. Okay? So, because in this case, we're gathering up the yurt. We're turning the switch off, and we're turning all the self switches off, and we're fading the screen in and out, and then we're exiting the event. Right? So now the player's back on the map, and the yurt's gone. When no, then the show text, okay, fine, let me know when you want me to pack up the yurt, exit the event, right? Because you're going to leave the common event. So all of this is happening if the yurt is on, right? And then it asks you, do you want me to take it down? Blah, blah, blah. It does all this stuff. Now, if the yurt is, so if the yurt is not on, then it jumps down to here and it shows text. Do you want me to set up the yurt? Again, show choices, yes or no. When yes, we're going to turn the switch yurt on to on. So we're turning on the switch. And that's all we're doing, because then it's going to jump down here. When it's no, then basically the show text says, okay, fine, let me know when you want to set the yurt up, and I'm going to exit the event. That's in the when I say no, because I need to get out of the common event. So when yes, we turn the switch on, and then it jumps down to here. Now this is where, remember with the first event I showed you where I was playing around with the math and the variables and the width and the height of the map? This is the common events doing that. So one variable, yurt map ID equals map ID. So we're setting the yurt map ID in a variable so that it's to the map ID. So if I'm on map 25, this variable becomes 25 and it stays that way. right? So that I know where my yurt is. This is setting the map ID to map ID. I don't think this variable is actually needed, but I haven't tested taking it out yet. So I don't necessarily think this variable, setting this variable is needed, but I was messing around and I never took it out. It's certainly not hurting anything. Then I'm setting the variable map width x and map height y to the game data. $game capital map dot width parentheses, $game capital map dot height parentheses, right? So I'm setting the width of the map and the height of the map to variables. Then I'm also setting the player position x and y. So what is the x and y coordinate of the player where they are standing when they use the item? So we're setting that to the map x of the player and the map y of the player. And so let me just show you these because I didn't do it on in the previous one. So when I go here, again, this is using a script, right? So I'm setting the variable to the script, $game capital map dot width, and then the parentheses. This one is also using a script, right, for the height. This is using game data. So I'm using the game data, and I'm doing it from here. Character, player, map x. Okay, and then the other one is essentially using the y. Game data, character, player, map y. All right, then this is doing that math. So the variable yurt x is equal to, or I should say set to, it's not equal to, it's set to the variable 499, right, which is the width of the map, minus the variable for the position x of the player. So that's what yurt x is going to be. And then your y is going to be the variable 500 minus 31, which is the map height minus the player y. Okay, so this is just using a script, right? Here's my math in the script. Script, $game capital variables dot value in parentheses 499 minus, and then $game capital variables dot value and then in parentheses 30, the number of the variable. Okay, so we're doing math. So we're going to set all of these variables when we're setting up the yurt. Then we're going to use this get location information because we're going to use the region ID of the player. So variable player region ID, type region ID, right? You have a bunch of options here. Terrain tag, tile ID layers, but we're saying region ID. And then we're going to designate it by the character, the player. So what is the region ID of the player? Okay? So we're gonna set this, right? I always forget this is there. Get location information. So you say, where is it? Well, in event commands, right? It is on page 3. Get location information. Page 3 of event commands. Get location information. You choose the variable. You choose the type, right? Terrain tag, region ID, whatever. And then you either location direct designation, variables, or designate by the character. I want the character's region ID. Okay. Now, why do I want that? So let me show you that first. Because the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do some conditional checks. This is setting all the information I need to place the yurt. These conditional branches are going to be, will the yurt fit where I want to put it? Okay, so let's go back here to the map first. I'm going to go to my mapping option. I'm going to go to R for the region IDs. And you're going to notice that all of the places where there is obstacles, like I don't want to put the map on, I don't want to put the yurt on top of this kid. Can't put it, it won't fit in these trees. It won't fit here, right? Because it's 9 tiles, right? It's a 3 by 3, right? The yurt takes up this amount of space. So I can't put it where it overlaps obstacles, it overlaps trees. That looks weird. So I put region ID of 2 for all of these places where the yurt won't fit. And then on this map, I did the same thing. The trees here, here's my fencing, right? I don't want to be too close to the fencing. I don't want to be too close to the fencing. I don't want to be too close to the fencing. But you noticed I didn't do it here, which is why I was able to put the yurt in a way that made it overlap where it's not supposed to. Okay, so that was a potential issue. But I'm using the region ID to control at least part of the checks. All right. So I'm going to get back over there. That's the R, right? The R tab. Go back to the eventing, and go back here. So the first thing it's going to do, it's going to say if player region ID is 2, right? So if the player is standing on a region ID of 2, it's going to say, I'm sorry, the yurt won't fit, right? There's an obstacle in the way. And then it's going to turn the switch yurt on to off, and it's going to exit the event. Because basically it started going through the setting up the yurt, but then it figured out, oh, wait, the yurt's not going to fit there. So I'm going to tell you it's not going to fit. I'm going to turn the switch off, and then I'm going to exit the event. You have to pick a different spot. So that's if the player is standing on a tile that has a region ID of 2. And that just requires you to put that on the map. So you're sitting there and saying, if I'm standing here, if the player's standing here, will the tent fit, right? So then the next thing it checks, right? So let's say this is not true, so it skips it. Next thing it's going to check, if the player position X is less than 2, now how would that be less than 2? This is where that math comes in, right? So remember up here, player position X is the map X of the player, right? What this is saying is that on my map, this is 0, right? So let me get out of here. I'm going to go back over here. This is 0 for X, right? This is 1 for X, right? So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to 17. And Y does the same thing, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you say, how do I know that? Well, when I click here, I'm on 0, 0, X of 0, Y of 0. When I click here, I'm 16 and 0, right? 16 and 0. Remember, this is 17 tiles across, but it starts at 0. So 0 to 16 is, in fact, 17 tiles. When I'm down here, it's 16, 16, but again, that's actually 17 tiles. And then here is 0, 16. And then if I click here, it's 7, 5, right? So anyway, that's the first part. And when the conditional branch is checking and saying if the X is less than 2, that means here, right? It's going to say it's not going to fit. Why? Because, I'm sorry, this is less than 2, right? 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1. Well, if I'm standing here, if I put the yurt up, it's going to go into this black area. And I don't want that, right? I don't want that. So it's going to check first and say, am I standing too close to the edge of the map? If the X is less than 2, I'm too close to the left edge. So not going to be able to put it there. It's going to do the exact same thing with the Y, right? If I'm up here, this is 0 for Y, this is 1 for Y. If I'm standing here, the tent isn't going to fit. The yurt is not going to fit. Okay? So that's the first thing it does. If player position X is less than 2, I'm standing too close to the left edge. I'm sorry, yurt won't fit. Turn off the switch, exit the common event. Then, if this is not true, it's going to check, what about the Y? If player position Y is less than 2, that means you're standing too close to the top of the map. I'm sorry, it won't fit. Turn the switch off, exit the processing. Okay, so now we've checked it to say, am I standing in a region ID I can't? All right, well, then that's going to tell me. Am I standing too close to the left edge? Am I standing too close to the upper edge, right? So now it's got to do a couple more checks. This one is using a script. Again, conditional branch. If, okay, so this is conditional branch, page 4, script, okay, using script. If $game capital variables dot value 30, that's player position X, right? How do I know that? Well, there's 30, player position X. If that is equal to, so two equal signs means equal, right? Equal by itself just means set to. Two equal signs means equal. If variable 30, player position X, is equal to the game variable 499 minus 2, then it's going to say, I'm sorry, the yurt won't fit. Turn the switch off, exit processing. Well, what was 499? Well, 499 was the map width, right? The X of the map. So map width in this map is 17, right? So 17 minus 2 is 15, right? So what this is saying is if the player X, if the position X of the player is 15, and that's equal to the width of the map, which is 17, minus 2, right? Which actually, so the number it uses is 16, right? Because it starts at a 0, and minus 2. All this is doing is it's trying to check to see, are you standing too close to the right side of the map? If you're standing too close to the right side of the map, the yurt's not going to fit, because this is checking the X of the player, and it's basically saying what's the width of the map minus 2. And if basically you're equal to that, then the yurt's not going to fit. You can't do it because of the way I have the map set up, right? Because this, you can't stand in these boxes. You can stand here, right? But this is too close to the edge of the map. So you have to be at least standing this far away from the right-hand side. You have to be standing at least this far away from the left-hand side. You have to be standing at least this far away from the top, and you have to be standing at least this far away from the bottom. Okay? And so that's what this is doing, using math. If, right, it's checking to see. And then it's doing the same thing with the y. If the variable, the 31 variable, which is the height of the map, the y, right? I'm sorry, this is the player y, player position y. And then it's checking, is it equal to the map height minus 2? And if that's true, if they're equal, then the yurt's not going to fit. You're standing too close to the bottom of the map. And then turn the switch off, and then do the exit, and then exit, right? So again, up here, it's getting all this information that you need to place the yurt on the map, and then actually checking your edges of your map too, right? And then it's going to go through its conditional branches, right? You get the region ID of the player. If the player is standing on a region ID that they're not supposed to, sorry, it won't fit. If the player X is less than 2, sorry, you're standing too close to the left side of the map. If the player position Y is less than 2, sorry, you're standing too close to the top of the map. If we do our math, if the player position X is equal to the width of the map minus 2, you're standing too close to the right side of the map. And then this one, again, using the conditional branch script, right? Conditional branch, page 4, script. If the variable player position Y is equal to the height of the map minus 2, that means you're standing too close to the bottom edge of the map. So it's going to do all those checks to say, sorry, you can't put the object there. Assuming it gets through all of those, so it does all those checks and none of them are correct, none of them are true, then it's going to check, okay, which direction is the player facing? Why? Because I'm going to have the player move so that so that where they were standing is where part of the yurt is going to be, right? So if the player is facing down, right? So if the player is facing this way, right, down this way, then we're going to use set movement route of the player. They're going to take a step forward, right? So, and then they're going to turn 180 degrees. So what that means is if the player is here, they're facing down, they're going to step this way, and then they're going to turn to face this way. And then, if they're here and they're facing this way, they're going to take a step this way, and then they'll turn and face, right? If they're over here, they'll step this way, and then they'll turn and face. And if they're up here, they'll step this way, and they'll turn and face. Okay, that's what this is doing. So if they're facing down, we're going to, sorry. Oh, sorry. There we go. We're going to set movement route, one step forward, turn 180 degrees, wait for the completion, and then it's going to be done, and we're going to exit out of that. Okay. If the player is facing left, set movement route, turn left, move up. Oh, I had it wrong. I guess I had it wrong. So you're gonna if you're facing left, you're going to turn left, move down, and then turn 180 degrees. Okay, so you're facing the opening of the yurt. That's right. I wanted to make sure you were always facing the opening of the yurt. That's right. So then if you're facing right, if the player's facing right, then you're going to essentially turn right, move down, and turn 180 degrees. Okay. And then I forgot, I skipped this one. If the player is facing up, then you take one step backwards, right? So again, if you did it right up here with these conditional branches of will the yurt fit, then having the player move so that the yurt will sit where they were originally standing, this will not be a problem. Okay, so again, if they're facing up, they basically step backwards. If they're facing down, they step forward and then they turn around. If they're facing left, they turn left, move down, and then turn 180 degrees, so they're facing up to the opening of the yurt. And then if you're facing right, this way, they turn right, move down, turn 180 degrees, so they're facing the opening of the yurt. So those 4 conditional branches are just basically saying which way is the player facing, get out of the way so you can set the yurt up, and make sure you're facing it. Okay? Now, here, from here all the way down to here is where you are moving these events to the correct position on the map. That's what these are doing. You're moving the events to the correct position on the map. And so how did we do this? All right, so first thing we did was I said, I'm going to have a new variable, yurt player X location. That means once this yurt gets put up, this variable is never going to change again unless we are changing, we're putting the yurt up again. Okay, so the player position X might change, the player position Y might change, but the yurt player X location is never changing until we put the yurt up again. So take a control variable. Yurt player X location is going to be equal to the player player position X. That's not the, so that was the new player position X, right? Or wait a second. No, this is the variable. So we didn't reset this. This is the position X of the player when they first used the item, not after they moved, right? Not after the set movement location. This was the variable of where they were standing originally, okay? Because that's where the yurt's going to go. So the player yurt X location is set to the player position X, basically the last time we checked. Yurt player Y location is set to player position Y. Again, the last Y position that we checked. So then it's going to say, okay, yurt X location is equal to the variable 490 minus 1. This is 490, the Yurt player X location, minus 1. And the Yurt Y location is set to the variable 491, which was the Yurt player Y location, minus 1. And the reason this is happening is because the center, remember this one? This is the lower center of the Yurt. That's the opening. That is going to be the Yurt player X location. But we need to find this one because I'm going to set this event first. So we're going to take the coordinates of this and subtract 1 from them. And that will be the proper coordinates for this, right? And so this one, so first we do the variable stuff, then we do this, set event location, and then I pick the event, tent lower left corner, tent lower left corner. That's this one. And I'm going to set where I want it to be with variables, Yurt X location, Yurt Y location. Okay? And so that's what we were just setting here, Yurt X location, Yurt Y location, right? And where did you get to that? This is set event location right here, set event location. So first, we figure out what is the Yurt player X location, Yurt player Y location. That's not going to change. We're going to use that later on. The Yurt X location and the Yurt Y location, we're basically taking these variables, and because we need to figure out where this first box is going to go, first event's going to go, we subtract 1 from it. 1 from, because we want to move it, right? 1 over. And that's what this is doing. Set event locations, moving this event to wherever it's supposed to be on the map. Then we have to move the next one, the middle one, this one, tent lower center. So Yurt X location is we're going to add 1 to it. So basically we took 1 away from it. Now we're putting 1 back to the X location. And then we're going to set event location. Yurt X location, Yurt Y location. So the Y didn't have to change, but the X did, right? Because we're going to go from the like 1 spot here to 1 over. So that's the second event that has to get moved. Then the third one, 492, Yurt X location, we're adding 1 more to it. We're adding 1 more to the X. We're moving it 1 more over. And then we're going to set the event location, tent lower right, the third one. And we're setting it to Yurt X location and Yurt Y location. So you'll notice that these 3 set event locations, the Y didn't change once we set it, right? But the X did, right? The X definitely did. So first, we subtracted 1 from the X, then we added 1, then we added 1, just to make it appear properly on the map. So that gave us our lower left, center, and right of the Yurt. So then we have to change our variables again. Yurt X location is, we're going to subtract 2 from it, right? So we added 2, we're going to subtract 2 from it. And then the Yurt Y location, we're subtracting 1 from what it was before. And then we're going to set the event location tent middle, to the Yurt X location and the Yurt Y location. And then we're going to do the thing for the middle center. So the Yurt X location, we're adding 1 to it. And then we're not touching the Y. The Y is staying the same. So then we're going to set event location, tent middle center, right? Tent middle center. And we're setting it to the Yurt X location and the Yurt Y location. And then we're doing the same thing for the next one. We're going to, Yurt X location, we're adding 1 to it, right? And then we're going to set the event location to the Yurt X location and the Yurt Y location. And then we have to do the thing for the last 3, the upper left, upper middle, upper right. So Yurt X location, we're subtracting 2 from it again. And then the Y location, we're subtracting 1 from the value. And then we're setting event location using the two variables. And then we take the x, we add 1 to it, set event location using the two variables, and then we add one more to the x location, and then we set event location using the x and y variables. This is probably the hardest part of this, is, when I was doing it, I had to look at it and say, okay, let's say I'm standing here, right? This is where I'm standing. And now I'm going to move 1 down. So now I'm going to be standing here. Well, this is where the yurt has to be. Well, that's going to be the lower middle. So how do I make it where this is the lower left, this is the lower middle, this is the lower right, then middle left, middle, middle, middle right, upper left, upper middle, upper right, right? So I just figured out, how do I modify those variables to get these events moved to the proper location? How do I move this to be here? How do I move this to be here? How do I move this to be here, right? And then this to here, 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 and this to here, and this to here, right? How do I do those x and y variables to get those events where they're supposed to be? That's what this is doing, okay? So be very, very careful as you're going through this, all right? Then this is almost done. We're going to fade the screen out and fade the screen in, and while that screen is fading in and out, we're going to use that same script we used before to loop through all the events, and guess what it's doing? It's turning them on. So false is now true, because true means you're turning the self switches on. So what this is doing up here, this is getting you ready to do your X and Y's. These set event locations, right, are actually moving these to the proper spot on the map, but they're still invisible because they're still on page 1 of the events. So this is moving all of these to where they need to be on the map, but they're still invisible. It isn't until you get to here that it turns on the self switches for all of them, and then the map, the tent, the yurt, appears, because all of these suddenly change to self switch A's are turned on, so the second pages of all these events become active. Okay? And then that's the common event. So once again, I know this is really long, but this is kind of a little bit of a complicated event. We set our map ID. Current map ID is set to map ID. We got to check, is the yurt on? Because if so, I got to figure out, do you want me to take it down or not? Right? And then if I'm not on the same map as the yurt, he has to tell me, I'm sorry, you're not on the same map. You can't do that. And then if I'm not on the same map, then if I am on the same map, then he can take the yurt down. And we're going to turn all of those self switches off, because that's going to make them go back to the page that doesn't have any tile. So it'll make them disappear, right? And then if you say no, fine, he's not going to do anything. He's going to ask you here, do you want me to set it up? Yes or no. And again, turning that switch on. And then this is getting all of the variables ready, right? To say, what's my map width? What's my map height? Where is the player, X and Y, right? Where's my yurt going to be, right? Do that math. Then it's going to check through all these, and you're going to get the region ID of the player, right? Because remember, if it's standing on a 2, then you're in a region where you can't be, and the yurt won't fit. And then it's going to check, right? If the player is standing on a region ID of 2, it's not going to fit. If the player position X is less than 2, they're too close to the left side of the map. If the player position Y is less than 2, that means they're standing too close to the upper edge of the map. Then we're going to use this script to do math. And if this is basically checking to see is the player too close to the right side of the map, right? The X. And this is checking to see, is the player too close to the bottom of the map? And it's not going to fit. And then these conditional branches are saying, okay, which way is the player facing? And then I'm going to move the player and make them turn or make them do whatever so that they're going to face the opening of the yurt when it appears. And then this is basically getting our variables ready so that we can say, hey, I need to move the first part of the event to the right spot on the map. Then I got to change the X location. And then I got to move the next. And then I got to change the X location. And then I got to move the next. Then I got to reset the X location, change the Y by 1, and then move the next event. Change the X location, move the next event. Change the X location, move the next event. Then I'm going to change the X location and the Y location, and then I'm going to do my last set. Set the event for the upper part, change my X location, set the event for the upper middle, and then change my X location, and then set the event for the upper right location. Then it's going to fade in and out, and at the same time, it's going to turn all of those self switches to on so that the yurt actually appears. Okay, that's the common event every time it gets called. Now, so what we've done is we've gone over getting the yurt. We've gone over these events that are going to be turned on, right? Page 2, second page is going to be turned on so that the yurt actually appears. What this is doing is it's actually very similar to the common event. This is a parallel event that has to be on the map. On page 1, right, it has no image, but it is running in parallel. So as soon as you're on this map, this event is going to start to run. Okay, it's going to start to run. And what's it going to do? First thing it does is it sets a variable, map ID equals map ID. I need to know what map I'm on. Then it's going to do a check, conditional branch. If map ID is not equal to yurt map ID, because remember, when we put the yurt up, we set the map ID of the player to the yurt map ID. So what this is doing is it's saying, hey, if the map ID that I'm currently on is not equal to the yurt map ID, then that means the yurt is not supposed to be visible. So I'm going to use that script to make sure all of the self switches are off, right? I'm going to make sure all of these are turned off so that they don't show. And then I'm going to turn my own self switch A on, and I'm going to exit. So I'm not going to run in parallel anymore. And self switch A makes this page active, self switch A, the page where the highest page where the conditions are met, and there's no content. And it's action button, which means it's not sitting there running in parallel forever. It just doesn't do anything. Okay? So get the map ID and then check. Is my current map ID, is it not equal to yurt map ID? That means the yurt is not supposed to be on this map. So I'm going to turn off all those self switches in case they're on, so that the yurt's not going to be visible up here, sitting here. It's not going to be pictures of part of a yurt. I'm going to turn my own self switch A on, and I'm going to exit. Now, if this is not true, meaning that if the map ID is in fact equal to the yurt map ID, right? Then and then I'm going to check the next part. Because remember, if this is a conditional branch. So if these are not equal, if these are equal, then it's going to skip over this and it's going to drop down here and check this. If yurt is on, that means the switch. If the switch yurt on is on, then I'm going to do this right here is from the common event. This is exactly, well, I'm sorry, it's not exactly, well, is it exactly? Let's see. Yurt X location is what I'm using, yurt X location, yurt X location, yurt X location. Let's double check. Yeah, yurt X location, right? Yurt X location, yurt X location, yurt X location. So essentially, this is gonna repeat what the common event did, right? It's gonna repeat what the common event did, and then so these are moving these events to the correct spot on the map that we saved, and then it's going to use that script to turn all the self switches on, make the yurt appear where it's supposed to be. Okay, so that's if the yurt is on. But then there's a final conditional branch. If the yurt on is actually off, so if the switch yurt on is off, then it's not going to do anything with this. It's going to turn its own self switch A on, which will activate this page, right? And this wait 10 frames, this is just, actually that's not even necessary anymore, is it? Because if this is true, then it's going to turn its own self switch A on and it's going to exit the event. If this is true, it's going to do this. Let's see. If that's on, it's going to do this. Oh, no. And then this, that's right. Yes, that's correct. So that is going to, all these are true. Well, actually, no, because this is turning all the self switches to true, which means this self switch gets turned on, which means it's going to go to this page. And then down here, if the switch is off, it's going to turn this self switch on, so it's going to go to this page. So in reality, this wait 10 frames is no longer needed. I'm not going to delete it right now, but the only reason you do a wait is so that your parallel event doesn't run continuously every 1/60th of a second, right? It's running 60 times a second. So you put a wait in there. But actually, now that I look at it, no matter what happens here, if this is true, it's going to advance to the second page. If this is true, it's going to turn the self switches on, which means this will advance to the next page. If this is true, it's going to turn that on. It'll advance to the next page. So basically, it'll never get to this wait 10 frames. So this can actually be deleted. So anyway, but that's fine. That's what the parallel event is doing. Okay? It's running in parallel, and then essentially it turns itself off by moving to this page. Okay? Action button. All right, so we're almost done. This is one event, one map, right? Now, when we transfer from this map, okay, the only thing that's happening special with this is we're going to use that script to turn the self switch for map 25, event 11, which is that parallel event, self switch A, we're turning that off. Okay, even though in theory we shouldn't have to do that now. Now that I think about it, I'm going to have to go back and test that, because this right here should essentially be turning itself off. Oh, no, I'm sorry. No. I'm sorry. This is turning, all of those are turning self switch A on. What we want to do is when we leave the map, we want to make that parallel event ready to run again when we come back. So this is turning the self switch A of event 11 on map 25. We're turning it off. We're turning it to false. That means this is event 11. We're turning this off, which means when we come back to the map, this is ready to run in parallel again. Okay, that's why we're doing it. Okay, so, and I did that in both spots. So we have two transfer events. You're going to use the script to turn the self switch off for that event 11, that parallel event, so that when we come back to this map, that parallel event is going to run again the first time. Okay, that's what that's doing. Now, the other thing I have to show you is this, the Yurt transfer, right? So the Yurt transfer event, where we're fading out the screen, right? Fading in the screen. And in between, we're going to use that self switch script to, again, turn the parallel event switch A to off so that the parallel event is ready to run again when we come back. Because if we don't make that parallel event ready to run again, it's not going to put the Yurt back where it's supposed to be. and then we do the transfer, right? Transfer player to the wherever we want them to transfer to. Okay. And I used fade none here because what I discovered is it looked weird without the fade out screen and the fade in screen. This actually looked weird by itself. Okay. All right. Now the other thing I'll warn you is this. This right here is the thing that was causing me the problems. I had this script below the transfer. And on this map, it worked perfectly fine. But in the next map, it didn't work fine. It caused a problem. I have no idea why. I don't understand why. But by moving this, turning that self switch A on, essentially, I'm sorry, turning that self switch off and getting the parallel event ready to run again, by doing that first and then doing the transfer, it fixed it on this second map. Again, I don't know why, but it did. Okay, so we have our Yurt transfer, right? And essentially, it's transferring us to this here, this map. Remember this, and then this is so this is actually unnecessary. I shouldn't need this because I already did it on when we left the map, right? I did it when we left the map, so this is actually unnecessary. I'll have to go back and remove this and then make sure nothing breaks, but that shouldn't be necessary. This should not be necessary, this right here, because we already on this map, right? When we transferred the player, we already set that to false. So that shouldn't be necessary. Okay. All right. So let's see. We did getting the Yurt. We did all of these events here. We did the common event, right? We went through the whole common event. We went through the parallel event, right? Which is basically making sure the Yurt shows back up where it's supposed to be. And then we did the transfer events. Now, on this second page here, everything is exactly the same. So you're still using the common event when you go into items. These right here are no different. These are exactly the same. So what I did to test this was I copied this map and then I just changed it a little bit. All of these events stayed exactly the same. This event stayed exactly the same. Nothing unique about this is different. This entire event is exactly the same as it was on the last map. These are almost the same. They're just sending you to a different place. And it's changing the map self-switch, right? Because you're doing one switch. So it's map 26 instead of map 25. And then this guy here, I just used him to confirm the map ID and the Yurt map ID because something wasn't working right and I had to troubleshoot it. So that's why he's here. But so essentially what I'm trying to show you here is that for every map that you want to be able to set that Yurt up on, you need these 9 events, preferably the same number, right? And then you need that parallel event too. So you need essentially 10 events on every single map to make this work the way I built it. All right. However, these events are all generic. They can be copied and pasted to all the maps you want, and it shouldn't hurt anything. And it's not like they're a bunch of parallel events running, right? They're not. So it's not going to bog down your game at all. So I will just say, though, is that, again, ideally, if you were going to do something like this, you would know ahead of time. And so for all your maps, these 10 events would probably be event 1 through 10. So they're always the same, right? And then, again, what I was telling you was anytime you see this script, if you have other events on your map that have self switches, which it's very common to use self switches, this is going to turn the self switches for every single event on your map on or off. And that may not work for you, which means instead of doing one script to do this, right, for looping and turning them all off, what you'd have to do instead is you'd have to use a script like this and then have one of these scripts for every single event, right? Event 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way through your events that you needed to turn off. Now, maybe there's a way to loop, and you know what? There's probably a script way to just loop through events 2 through 11. There probably is. I don't know how to do it right now. So if that's a possibility, sure, that would probably be better than doing them one at a time. But anyway, that should be it. I don't think I forgot to cover anything, right? So I showed you the test. I showed you all it does. And essentially, like if we set the yurt on this map, when we go down to this map and this parallel event runs, the first thing it checks is the yurt map ID, is it not equal to my map ID? And it's going to say it's not, because the yurt is on the other map. The yurt is I'm on map 26. The yurt is on map 25. So that means it's going to basically make sure that those self switches are off so that you don't see anything. You don't see any map. You don't see any yurt pieces. And I'm going to turn myself off. So it's not going to try to place the yurt on this map, right? So this parallel event is what is basically checking every time you enter the map, is the yurt supposed to be on this map? If so, let me put these events back where they're supposed to be. If the yurt is not supposed to be on this map when I enter it, then these are going to stay exactly where they are. They're not going to move, and I'm not going to be able to see them. The player's not going to be able to see them. Okay, I know this is probably a very long video, and I apologize for that. I hope that I explained the entire thing. I hope you gathered something from this. I hope this kind of, shows you some concepts that you might be able to build off of. As I said, one of the most difficult parts of this is this portion here. Making sure that you have the X and Y location correctly to make sure that your large multi-tile event is going to show correctly, right? Because remember, the way I did it with this yurt example, it's 3 by 3. And you got to make sure that it's sitting in the right spot and it's not, covering up something it's not supposed to cover. All right. Anyway, that's it, folks. I hope this was helpful. If these videos are helpful, or if you at least appreciate the effort that goes into these, including the time where I make mistakes and I have to start over again, please consider liking, subscribing, getting notifications, leaving comments. Again, I'm making these videos to give back. I hope they're helpful to people. I'm not doing this to try to, be like some awesome YouTube contributor person. I'm just doing this to try to help people out who are trying to learn RPG Maker MZ just like me. All right. And, if you try to do this and it doesn't work, by all means, consider, leave a comment. I'll try to help you out. I hope I didn't forget to explain anything. I hope I was clear. You should be able to freeze the screen, take screenshots or whatever, and try to replicate it if you really want to. Hopefully this will give you stuff to build off of. All right. So anyway, I'm glad you found my channel, folks. Again, I hope these are helpful. I have no idea when I'm going to be able to get another video up. I have so many things that are in progress that I keep getting distracted, and I need to go back and work on some stuff and then see when I can, actually post another, either a demo and then an explanation or what have you. But in the meantime, folks, I hope you're having a great day. I hope you're having an awesome journey and having a great time learning RPG Maker. And, in the meantime, between now and when I can get another video up, happy gaming and happy game developing. And I will talk to everybody later. Bye.